Jovial campers, it's Steve for a change. Finally returned from my travels and we've managed to get some time together this week and thought we'd kill two birds with one stone. And we've done a bit of mountain biking today up here in North Yorkshire in Dalby Forest, and we thought today we'd do a video introducing one of the topics we often cover in our camping videos about the photography side of things. I'm just waiting for Colin to finish this particular section. Doesn't look good. You alright, Col? He's alright.
Can we just can we cut recording for a minute? Just while
He's alright.
Sort myself out?
He's alright. He's alright.
Yeah.
Everything's moving.
I'm alright, guys.
He's alright. He's a professional mountain biker. He's good. He's good.
Brush myself off.
Colin's cleaned up. And we're going to carry on with what we were talking about, giving you a brief introduction as to the intricacies, shall we say, of the modern digital camera. These are both Sony Alpha 6000s, retailing at the moment between, I'd say, £400 and £500. Colin's just bought his. I've had mine a couple of years. It was more than that at the time. But these are both exactly the same. We've both decided, after going on the previous wild camp, that this is the way forward. They're much lighter and the performance is pretty much the same, if not better in some areas, than the full-size DSLRs without having to carry around 2-3 kilo lenses. Now the beauty of the Alpha 6000, along with thousands of the other name brands that can all do the same thing, is it has the operational capability of a DSLR, so you can run it with as much automation as you want, or you can take full manual control. And it's the manual control we're going to talk about today, because looking around today, as you can see, it looks absolutely beautiful weather, and it is. It's stunning to be out and about, but it's actually a photographer's nightmare, because any camera
motorbike that's coming now.
Yeah, I mean, you get things like that because people come out and they decide to ruin my video. But other than that,
he's off.
He's off.
There we go. Because we said ruin. All three of them are off.
Hells Angels, go on.
There you go. Off you go.
Off you go.
4,
go.
5,
get on pedal bikes here only.
Yeah, come
Men
on.
only. Anyone can
off.
do an engine.
I'd take it to the face.
I would.
Yeah,
no problem. All five of them.
Oh yeah.
I'll be right behind you, Cole.
Yeah.
Right behind you.
I've got better trainers than you.
Yeah,
though.
definitely. Yeah, that's right.
Run a bit faster.
That's true. But you're injured now.
Yeah, fully.
Right, where were we?
Sorry.
Yeah, photographer's nightmare. And the reason is the human eye is a very, very clever bit of kit, because the brain interpolates everything it sees. So we can look out through our sunglasses now and I can see a glorious blue sky and a sun and the green trees and the green grass, etc. like that. Now your eye doesn't actually see that. The brain actually knows that that's the colour it is, and it fills in the colours. What a camera will do, and this is called exposure. A camera will adjust all these settings I'm about to talk about to try and give you the best balance to get as much of the detail in as it can. So if you've got a very light sky, very bright, it's going to try and pull that brightness down so that it's not overexposed, and resulting in most of the things that are underneath it will go jet black because it can't pick those out. Automatic will almost, what would you say, 90% of the time will do that?
Yes, of course it will, yeah. It'll expose for the sky.
This is when you need to take your manual control over. Now what I'm going to talk about first is aperture. Colin will then tell you about shutter speeds, which directly relate to aperture, and then we'll go into a little bit about ISO. They're the three main things that you need to learn when you're using these cameras.
Can I point out as well that we could do a full video on just aperture, so we're going to kind of skirt over. This is true.
We're doing a video that's for normal people.
Yeah. I'm
not going to use any ridiculous language that all the camera video will go on to in 1,000 years and explain to you how the handheld shooting capabilities of this camera with IS 9000 and everything turned on will give you a 1/30th of a second, because no one wants to know. This is for people that want to go out on a wild camp, have some fun, and be able to press the trigger and know roughly what the camera's going to do. So the first one here, this is your mode control dial. The two that you're almost always going to use will be A, on these cameras, that stands for aperture priority.
Close up.
S, shutter priority, and M is manual, where you can completely control both aperture and shutter. But I would argue, Colin would probably support me on this, for landscape photography your best use is aperture priority. Aperture is the size of that hole in the lens. You can directly relate it, to make it easy for yourself, to your own eye. If you ever look at someone's eye in low light, the eye will automatically, the iris will increase the size of the eye and your pupils will dilate. Bigger black hole basically, because it needs to let more light into your eye so you can see. Very bright sunlight as today, the iris will shrink right down into a tiny little hole, allowing far less light in. That is as simple as it gets. That is what basically f-stop, it's called f-stop, anything f. You'll see all the expensive lenses and go on about all day, about £3,000 lenses have got constant f2.8 up to 300mm. That's what it basically means. The f-stop is what the camera will do in terms of how big it will go to let light in and how small it will go when there's a lot of light. And you will use f-stop primarily to meter the amount of light you want to get on this sensor. So obviously brilliant sunshine like today, lovely blue skies, you will be using a smaller aperture, a higher number, f8, f10, to let less light into that lens. Now the advantages that also go with it, just like the human eye, is as the lens decreases, the aperture increases and the hole gets smaller, the focus, the sharpness of the image will also go up. That's also depth of field, but we don't really come into that very much with landscapes because we're taking a very large picture over generally quite large distances. So depth of field pretty much don't really affect you in landscape photography. So on this video anyway, we'll omit talking about it because you don't really need to know about it. So generally f8 onwards for landscape photography is going to give you a nice sharp image with a relatively small aperture. Now that's all good and well, and you can go above that, f10, f20 if you want. That's brilliant, that works perfectly in weather like today. But as you've seen from Colin and I's videos, it's not like this. No. Very rarely is it like this.
Rarely like this.
So if you open your aperture up to a nice sharp pinpoint to get that crystal clear image in low light and then take the picture in aperture priority, what the camera will do is then change its shutter speed to meter that light. And Colin, who's quite frankly better at shutter speed than I am because it's all in hundreds and thousands of seconds and he's a professional photographer, he'll run you through the relation between what the aperture does to the shutter.
Yes. Right. there's a what we call in industry a triangle, an exposure triangle. Now that is, just as Steve has explained there, you've got your ISO, your aperture and your shutter speed. When you change one thing, you most definitely need to change another thing. So when Steve just explained the aperture, the hole is getting smaller, so it's letting in less light. So what we have to do to get the same shot is decrease the shutter speed, so then it lets in more light over time. So what you're doing effectively is leaving the sensor. The sensor is the little thing inside your camera. I'll quickly show you there. There's a little bit inside there, that's called the sensor, and that records all the light that goes in, the images and everything. And obviously now I can't get this back on while I'm talking. There we go.
Oh, well done.
Thanks. That's multitasking.
That was
right
impressive.
Multitasking.
Now do it when it's -10 on the top of Windermere.
Right, yeah. So your shutter speed, it's not as in depth of a conversation as aperture. It basically means the speed in which the shutter opens and closes. So without going into too much detail about 1/100th of a second, 1/200th of a second, 1/16,000th of a second, basically 1/10th of a second is very similar to that, and then 1/200th of a second is like that. So if that gives you an idea
do that one again. That was good.
Do you like that?
Yeah, that was good. I think you've got a natural action.
I actually moved the hip
natural
as well.
Action.
Yeah.
That was good.
What that?
Yeah. Try 1/3000. Oh, that's you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
1/3000. That, I think I found my niche.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found my niche.
You were a walking shutter.
Far too many jokes.
Oh,
not enough time.
Brilliant.
So that pretty much explains shutter. So in a day like today, as Steve explained, you would want a relatively small aperture. So you're looking size-wise. So you're looking at maybe f7.1, f8, something like that. So that makes the hole smaller. What you've got to remember as well is the bigger the number, the smaller the hole. That confuses a lot of people as well. So at f8, in these brilliantly perfect conditions, 1/200th of a second would most definitely be okay at f8 because you've got a lot of light. The sun's directly above. I mean, again, I would suggest not to shoot at this time of day anyway, because you don't get very much interest. It's all a bit flat light. When the sun gets a bit lower, your shadows get longer, everything becomes a little bit more interesting, everything stills, you know, everything stills? Everything's slow. It gets a bit more still, does the air, if that makes sense.
Which is why all of our good shots are
first thing in the morning or in the evening.
First thing in the morning, about 4 or 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah. So ideally, to expose for something like this, you would want him to be shooting in a format called RAW. RAW is just, you've probably heard of the word JPEG. JPEG is just a file format for your images. So most people's images will be in JPEG. You can adjust, certainly these cameras, all DSLR cameras, and some point and shoot cameras actually do RAW. I know the Fuji XT1 or XF1, see the XT1 or the XF1 is quite small, that shoots in RAW. And basically what that does is it leaves all the information in the camera for you to then be able to post-process it afterwards to bring out the shadows or get rid of the blown out sky. And when I say blown out sky, I mean overexposed. So me and Steve have a slightly different shooting style when it comes to shooting in camera. I like to underexpose slightly, so then it gets the detail in the clouds, and then I pull out the shadows underneath. Steve gets his exposure pretty much bang on and then adjusts the both either way, and that's just a shooting preference. There's no right and wrong in that. And one thing you've also got to remember, there's no right and wrong in photography. If you take a picture of something and that's exactly what you wanted to take a picture of, and it's come out exactly how you thought it was,
fine.
They're absolutely fine. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that at all. So to get the shots, let's say for argument's sake, not that we're doing anything better than anyone else or more right than anyone else, to get some of the shots that me and Steve take on the fells, I'll slightly underexpose, bring out the sky, bring out the fields, detail. Steve again will meter in between that, do the exact same thing, just a different way of post-processing, and we'll shoot them on these. The last video, I think the majority, in fact, all of the shots.
I had this.
Yeah.
And we were testing to see if this worked.
Yeah, and that's where the thought process went round my head to go out and get one of these, because I was carrying around that big bulky DSLR. Do you remember me saying I bought the 50D, the 24 to 30 135 lens, and it was just bulky. It was weight, and the last thing you need when you're walking around fell in the rain, all wet, soggy, feeling bad, want to see mum, is weight. So I'm trying to get rid of this, hence the bikes. Around Dolby Forest now in York.
Dolby Forest, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic trail sensor, guys.
Brilliant.
Fantastic if you like your mountain bike.
Yeah, we're not going to go on about that because that's not what the channel is about. But yeah, we came out, did a bit of exercise. I've seen this beautiful vista, which we'll show you in a second, and we're going to take a few photographs. We're going
to take them in manual. We're going to do this because we're going to deliberately mess up the shots.
Yeah.
To show you what we're talking about overexposure, underexposure, the difference between apertures and everything like that.
And then the edited end. We'll also put the settings of each photograph on the picture that we're putting up. So we'll take a photograph, it'll appear on screen, you'll see the settings, and then you'll see the settings of the next photograph, and you'll realise actually it makes a massive difference when you get the settings right.
It does.
So
it does.
We'll leave it there, and we shall, unless you want to.
Well, we've got one more in the triangle.
Of course.
There's one more in the triangle.
I love triangle.
Triangle. Everything's threes. Everything with photography is threes. The rule of thirds. Yeah. The triangles.
Yeah.
The last one is ISO. ISO, which I believe stands for Industry Standard
Operation or
Optics
something.
or something like that. I don't know. Anyway,
it's a number. It doesn't make you take better photographs knowing what ISO means.
Nobody knows. It's like something that was delivered down by aliens during the last ice age. I mean, it's just a number. It's just a series of numbers. Lower is better.
Yes.
That's how it generally works. However, what it actually is, it is, in easy terms, it is the sensitivity of your sensor.
Yeah.
So it will
digitally enhance.
Digitally enhance. Yeah. The amount of light that is coming into your sensor. So if you are, like when we do our night shots, star shots, anything like that, or dust shots and everything like that, it doesn't matter how big your aperture, how big that hole. If we had f0.001, which would be a mile wide,
yeah.
You are still not getting enough light onto that sensor to make a perfect photograph at 1/200th of a second. It just cannot be done. The only reason we can see at night is because, like I said before, the brain does it all for you. The eye can't see diddly squat, I can assure you. So the other trick in the bag is you can increase that ISO number. So in weather like today, we would use ISO 100 because that gives, God, it gets so complicated. We're trying to keep it so simple. Yeah. ISO produces noise, but I'll get onto that in a second. But ISO will allow the camera to artificially, through the magic of some sort of alien technology, will allow you to get more light onto that sensor somehow without changing anything. So if I used a constant aperture of f8 and it was totally dark, I couldn't see anything, but I wanted to stick to that setting because I had no idea what I was doing, I can increase the ISO to say 6400, and magically the same picture with the same settings will be perfect. Now it sounds almost too good to be true, and in a lot of ways it is, because what happens with ISO is, because the camera's now doing artificial alien magicry, you get this thing called noise. And noise is or grain,
yeah.
And it's not as big a problem as it sounds for landscape photography, because most of the time you're not cropping in on those images. You're going to take that whole vista, and that's how it's going to stay. And it's only when you zoom in to like particular trees or birds or wildlife or specific points that you'll see noise. Noise literally looks like grain. It looks like grain, and the higher that number, the more that grain is going to be, prominent to see and everything. And that's also a factor of how much your camera body is and things like that. The more expensive cameras can handle noise far better. But again, Colin and I night camp. You know, we stay out in the fells and we take images through the night, and you're going to have to, whether you like it or not, up that ISO in order to get the light onto that sensor. But for normal everyday walking or just camping, you want to take nice pictures, ISO will never be a factor, especially in automatic. Leave it in aperture priority, leave it at ISO 100 and let the camera do the rest for you. So there's your three. Now it will take a lot of practice to balance them all, but the camera can do most of the work. If you leave it in aperture priority, understand that low light, low number, high light, high number, and let the camera work the rest out for you. We'll now deliberately put our cameras into manual, and we'll show you. I'll show you here first with the camera. We'll show you the vista that we're going to take photographs of. It's beautiful, and the camera, I think the GoPro will probably pick it up lovely. It's dead still, nice sound. It's good conditions. Awful to photograph. Awful. We will show you, just even with these really good cameras, and they are really good cameras, I'll show you just how awful automatic will do this, because I know, and Colin will know, it'll go straight for that sky and everything underneath will be black. It'll look like the middle of the night, but with an alien sky. So we'll show you now. We'll do various different pictures. I'll probably take 3, going on about how aperture affects a shot. Colin will probably do 3 with different shutter speeds, and then we'll probably take a couple with different ISOs, although it won't really make that much difference, but we can put the ISO up very high and it'll overexpose, but you'll see the grain that we were talking about. And then we'll put this video together, and hopefully we'll be able to show you the properly exposed, properly metered images, and that'll give you an idea on a day like this, which you'll get once every 9 years in the Lake District.
If you
how to do it. And on the next video that we do when we go actually out, because we've got a date booked now for early May. We're going out there
a couple of weeks, and
depending on the weather we'll do another video, and because a lot of people like the images of waterfalls made to go misty, and they do look great, and water, we can make lakes artificially somehow go like a mirror, and that's all to do with the trickery of changing those settings we talked about. So we'll take these shots, post them up in real time now, so you can see just what differences those make. There you go. I hope you found that informative.
Yep.
Hope that's made it a little bit easier for you to understand.
Ask any questions that you think you might have. If we've not explained something in more detail, we will do. We'll come back to it.
The next ones will be. The next ones will actually be back in the fells. Not sure where we're going yet, but
might be Helvellyn.
We'll be definitely doing it within the next 2 weeks. So I hope you found that video useful for you. It's nice to be back with you.
Yes.
Keep subscribed to keep up to date. We'll keep trying our best, but we've both got these stupidly busy lives at the moment. We don't seem to get much time, but we're both off. And we'll probably do a video for anyone who's interested on the Sony Alpha 6000 at some point, because we swear by it now. It's a very, very, very good camera.
Get one.
Alright guys, thanks for watching.
Take care. Nav.